guys, it's been a while since I made a beat making video. A lot's been going on, but I think I'm at a point where I know what I want to do with my music production and YouTube channels. Since the end of last year, I've been much more experimental with my music, getting into new genres and falling in love with drum and bass and breakcore specifically. Since May of this year, I've dropped 3 EPs, with my most recent coming out on Halloween, which are all on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Bandcamp, as well as streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music. I also just made my first loop kit ever, which is for ambient drum and bass, so I thought why not make a tutorial on how to make those kind of loops in songs. Alright, here's a loop from the loop kit. I'm gonna let it play, and then after that we're gonna make a loop similar to that and then turn it into a full song. Alright, so usually what I do when I make drum and bass is I sample, but since I made a loop kit, I'm gonna do everything from scratch, just like I did for all the loops in there. I pretty much use Serum as my main VST. Sometimes I'll use Zebra and Diva from time to time, but most of my sounds are from Serum. I think it's the best plugin out there, at least for what I do. So first thing we want to do, usually what I do is just go into a kit and just look for some pads. Sometimes this takes a little bit, but right now I think I know what I want to do. Pick... What note is that? Alright. Right now we're going to be in D minor. So we got that basic progression, and now I'm just gonna throw a bunch of effects on it and then build off of that. We really don't need too much because we're gonna flip this and build off of it later, but I just want to get enough sounds in there so there's a nice texture to it for when we sample it. Alright. So right now, here we have the pad, and here's all the effects that I used. Yeah, so Portal has a lot of really nice textures in it. They really can help change and shape sounds. And then Crystalline is a really good reverb, fruity delay. Then texture, all it really does is add sound under whatever sound you're using, kind of like the noise layer in Serum, except with this preset I didn't really like the noise that was there. And then with Wider, it's a free plugin. It's pretty easy to understand. You just drag it out and it pans in both directions of your ears instead of just left or right, and it helps create a fuller sound. Usually after I'm done flipping a sample, I'll drag it out to about 200, and that just helps create a really full sound. You can also use it for stuff like ARPs to help create added ambience and stuff, so everything doesn't feel compressed and in the same spot. Like there's dynamics to the song you're listening to. Yeah, I'm just gonna add a couple more layers, and then I'll show you how I flip it. sort of lead layer. Then we got this sort of pluck that I layered with a Looperator and portal, delay, wider, reverb. So it's just not a stagnant sort of one hit. I actually made this chain a few days ago for the first time. And then with this, I always like ARPs, you know? They just add a lot of texture and ambience. I like it. And with this, there's also a... It's very basic, but it's also a chain I made. It has Destructor on it, which I like to use for the bit crusher. I don't like to turn any of my effects up all the way. Wider doesn't really count. But with these that really change the sound, you know, especially with stuff like Portal, I usually pick the sound because I like how it is stock in Serum, and I just want the little added, you know, texture and layers to it. But now that we got everything, we're gonna finally flip it. So as you can see, what I usually do is I take this sample that I made and just render it out. Alright, and now this is where we can finally flip it. Route that to a channel, then after that's routed, if it's gonna load, there we go. Put it on a resample, and then just play with your speed. I don't mean for it to, but a lot of my stuff like this is 168 BPM. So now it's faster, but it doesn't have that sort of reverby feel yet. So what I'd like to do, have it, you know, on resample mode, pitch it up 3, or down 3 if you want to make it darker. Then you throw on Fruity Convolver, blur white. Now you see that's the sort of sound. That's the sort of sound that we're going for. And from here, you know, I'm treating it as if it was a sample from another song. Just gonna throw effects on it like I did with a pad, and we're basically just making a loop on top of a loop for the melody. I guess, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but that's definitely how I'm looking at it when I have to explain it. Alright, so now we got this to where we want it, and now I'll start building off of that again. I'll make a new pattern just so I'm not interfering with all of this. And yeah, I'm basically doing the same thing again. So most important thing, you want to render this sample again if you pitched it up or used resample at all, and throw it into tunebat.com. You want to click on key and BPM finder, and then you'll select your file and throw it in here. So we went from D minor to F sharp minor. So if you just want to edit the name, so you remind yourself what key you're in. But if you're in the newest version of FL, you can make sure to snap to the scale, so it won't be out of key now. And with the major and minor scales, the regular scales, the major Ionian and the minor Aeolian, they have those names in parentheses next to it. So if you can't tell which scale to pick, just look for the one in parentheses. the layers, and now this is what everything sounds like together. Alright, so it was at this point in the video where I began to do the drums, but because of how many effects I had and the fact that I was recording, my audio started to crackle and everything just slowed down, and it didn't sound good. So what I did was I stopped recording, made the rest of the song, and now I'm just gonna walk you through all the drums and arrangement that I did. Alright, so what I did, you can see that there's a lot of drums over here. I started with the amen break. And then I chopped it up. And then I added crystalline on it again. A good tip for when you're chopping up drums like this is to add a reverb like this. Whenever I add it onto my drums, it's usually around 50%. And what it does with the reverb is it makes it sound like they were played in one room, and it helps get rid of all the cuts that you made. So it sounds like this with the reverb on. From a different pack, we have these hi-hats. Also have crystalline on them, just, you know, to add more layers to the drums. It's a lot more subtle, but it's a nice thing I like to do. The kick from this break, and a snare from this break, and just layered it over kicks and snares within this. What it sounds like. That. You know, it helps the drums hit harder. You know, it adds a more unique part to the song too. It doesn't feel like the same stagnant drum beat the whole time. And then when we got to this arrangement over here, I then chopped it up more. So this is what it sounded like before. Again, with chopping it up like this, it helps show progression in the song. You know, it's not the same stagnant thing. As you add in more melodic layers, the drums get crazier too. It makes it feel a lot more full and more impactful. And then, as you can see, the lead up to it, I added 2 more drums. This one and this one. I kept them as is, you know, without chopping them, and then I added the phone preset in Pro Q3 along with crystalline. You know, it helps, especially in the intro, make it feel like a build-up. Into something much more impactful, like the song actually starts now. And then also we have these perk loops. Again, very simple. I like to add them for texture to start my build-ups and transitions. Added crystalline on them too and just lowered them. You can EQ them. I've put infiltrator on them before to add these glitchy effects. You can really do whatever you want. You know, there's not too many rules to drum and bass. That's really all I did for the drums. And with the arrangement, I basically had the sample we flipped, then the pad and the bass with all these perk loops and drums, then just the pad and the bass with the drums, then added in more textures. We have the section where we chop it up a little more, add the extra kick and snare, then a little lull, and then back into the second sort of verse. I don't put vocals on these really, but I like to structure them as if they're a song. It just helps me keep things organized. The last little part are the Looperators. So if you don't have Looperator, I'd suggest you do get it because it is pretty clutch. So what I do is I put them on the master so it affects everything. So we got this first Looperator that's like a build up. And then we got this Looperator here, which is just used as a stutter. And then we have this Looperator. You know, it helps the transition. It helps you move from this part to this part. And that's really it, you know? Looped everything twice. Well, looped everything again, so each section plays twice. Then over here we have our little outro. We have this sample reversed. We have that playing reversed. Up here is, I think it's our lead sort of texture. Where is it? Yep. Yep, so we got our lead sort of texture up here. Our ARP, our bass. And that's really it. And then under everything, I keep it really low, but we have this texture for water. That's all there really is to it. You can't really hear it. That's part of the point, but it makes everything seem fuller for the final mix. And when I have that final mix, I add Ozone 11 and I choose an adaptive dynamics preset. And when there's a lot less going on, what I'll do is I'll click this. It's an AI mastering assistant, and it'll help build a chain, and then I'll tweak it from there. But because of all the layers and stuff, I didn't do that, so it just stuck to the basic sort of adaptive preset. And what that does, it helps raise the volume level with the maximizer. It makes everything sound fuller. This is all sort of just the basic of everything. You can mess around with these IRCs for different sound, but I usually just keep it on whatever it chooses. It's usually IRC 4. I don't know how it chooses between the modern and classic. But yeah, that's really about it. I'll let this play out. And yeah.